Okay. Let's call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Cavazos.
Here.
Morrison.
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
Corral.
Here.
Cabrera Wozek.
Okay. That's ready. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, move on to the next agenda item, minute approval. We got the May meeting minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not here. Am I still allowed to vote on the, I was not at that meeting. Am I still required to
You
vote?
are,
Or?
you're allowed
You are
to.
allowed to vote.
Okay.
Mhm. Can I make a motion to approve the minutes from our ARB meeting on May 15th?
Oh, second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussions before we vote? Okay, let's put it for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We'll move on to the next agenda item, citizens' time. Do we have a list of citizens?
It's actually an applicant.
Okay,
It's just the applicant.
just the applicant. The applicant will allow you to speak when your COA is reviewed, and we'll have a dialogue then. Okay, we'll move forward then and go to the agenda items. I guess I would like to propose a motion that we swap the agenda items for the COAs, since the other one's not as complex and it'll probably get over a lot quicker before we move on to it.
I have no objection, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have any objections? Okay.
Nope.
Put it up for a vote then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's start off with ZP 2019-021.
So Dominic has returned. We previously saw him for the architectural review of the 3 single-family homes on Fayette Street, as well as a previous fence application for the rear fence. He's now coming to present an application to close in the fences and close in the yards with fences. He would like to discuss the options of receiving approval for a 4-foot versus a 6-foot, so that he can determine that at a later date. But I would like to invite him up to discuss the application, answer any questions you have. The material would match the existing rear fence.
Okay. Good evening.
So I'd like to enclose the fence, the yards, on each of the 3 properties. It would start at the back of the garage, or at the corner of the garage, and then kind of go over. I think you might have a site plan that shows that. So it'd match the same board-on-board fence that was approved and that we did in the rear of the property and off coming down to one side of lot number C. And I'd like to have the option of either doing a 6-foot to match that or a 4-foot. I'm just not 100% decided on that. The 6-foot provides privacy for the future homeowners. So if you're in your backyard, whatever you're doing, you got a 6-foot, you got privacy. The 4-foot still encloses the yard, takes care of pets and children and all that, but not as much privacy as far as visual.
Right.
So again, I'd like to do it soon, but I'm just not decided on the 6 or the 4.
I think the 6-foot is appropriate for the rear, because I know you wanted to keep the privacy from the businesses and the homes, but I think the 4-foot keeps with our guidelines. I know I think on page 9 it says not to exceed 48 inches, which is 4
Oh, it
feet.
does.
So
Okay.
I think we should stick with that.
So that's right in the guidelines then. Okay, I'm fine with 4 foot.
Or along both sides? Sorry, I was trying to look up a picture on Google Maps.
Right now, on the right side of Lot C, which is, when you come down, it's the first home, that's actually a 6 foot, because it matches and abuts up to the neighbor's fence, that is 6 foot. It goes there, and then we come down the whole rear of the all 3 properties.
Makes sense because, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that kind of complies with the separation of business from residential.
Is my concern bringing a 6-foot fence all the way to the forward front of the house?
Not to the front of the house.
Okay. Was
Whether
that
it's
in the
4
diagram?
foot or
or-
6 foot, we would start at the rear corner of the garage. Do you have a picture of the little site plan that shows?
I do,
where
I'm
the
trying
line is?
to,
So what happens at that point, at that rear point of that garage, it encloses in the HVACs and everything, so it's not in the front of the house. I typically never do fences
Like in the
right at
middle
the
of
front
the house,
property.
Marchant.
okay. Let me read that again. I swear I'm technically savvy, I don't know why.
On page
It's inverted.
28.
Go down.
It's inverted.
And I like to do it at that point also because
There you go.
we weren't able to get 4 lots, so there's quite a bit of distance between the 2 homes. House to house is 60 feet, so that's actually 30 feet on their property, so as opposed to bringing it to the back. Plus, it really doesn't present an opportunity to bring it to the rear corner of the house because the well decks, the stairs are there, and the railing is there, and there's just no way to make this look
Okay.
correct.
My concern was the compound effect, that if you brought 6-foot fence all the way to the front of
Oh,
the front elevation, it's gonna look like a compound.
Yeah.
We have a property up on Jordan Lane that has kind of that 6-foot fence, and it looks like a
Right.
compound.
And actually, this will be a
So-
little nicer because there's going to be a little offset, because
Okay.
when you come from so all the garages are on the left side, so the rear corner, if you draw that line, you see that, you see how I did a little offset there? That's because if it went the other way, it'd go in the middle of a window or something there, box bay. So actually, it's going to be nice in that there is an offset, it's just not going to be 60 foot of straight fence. There'll be a gate on the left side to enter, it's an arched gate, so each home will have an arched gate, and it'll be all on the left side of that garage as well.
Nice lots. The general consensus is a 4-foot fence between the houses? Up to the front, okay. With either picket or stucco,
I
whatever.
think they're all board
Board
on
on
board.
Board on board. I'm agreeable with that, Mr. Chairman.
Do you have
Okay.
any other questions before I make a motion?
No, it's all going to be natural. It's all going to be like the back, but 4 foot. Do you have any concerns about that restriction, or?
The 4 foot?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think a homeowner would like the privacy, but if that's in the regulations, you know, I mean, there's nothing right now that I would be able to do about that. I don't want to, you know, prolong it.
Yeah, I thought saw something. So Haymarket Station, when you're walking along Washington Street, they have 4-foot fences. You know, how some of those that they face, they're long, but they face Washington. They have the fences around them stay 4 feet, but when they get to the rear of the house, they go up to 6 feet. And it's done well. So I don't know if that would be the compromise, that, you know, 4 feet to the, maybe to the back elevation or the back facade, and then transition up to 6 feet. Because most of our backyards have 6 feet. My yard is 6 feet. The fence doesn't start till my rear, to the
Okay.
back face of the meeting, but that way your side yards are 4 feet and aren't
Right.
creating that, but then maybe past the, what's the word I'm looking for, past the rear facade,
The rear-
they would transition up to,
Okay. If I could have the either or on that would be good. I think that would give them the privacy once they're in the backyard, but then from the front, it would comply with the code as far as the 4 foot.
Be able to draw that for him?
Where would that transition occur?
Right at the rear
Corner,
of the
so,
property. I mean, of the house, excuse me.
correct. So so if you look on the diagram, do you see where that back stoop is on each of those house lots? So, let's see if I can draw it. So basically what you would do is if this is the house, and they want to do the fence here, the fence would be like 4 feet along the side of the house, and when it reaches the rear property line, it would transition up to 6 feet.
The rear, not the rear property line, but the rear.
I'm sorry,
Of the house.
the rear facade of the house. So basically, between the houses, it would be, what basically the effect is, between the houses would be 4 feet, but once you get past the rear facade, it would transition up, and I drew the ones over there were like a cascading sort of, you didn't just go to 4 to 6, there was some transition to it. So I'm comfortable leaving it to your discretion on how to do it, but.
So you see, you got this piece of the house, the garage, and then, of course, you got the back edge of the house. The fences are going to be kind of like halfway on the edge of the garage.
Something in here
So
to,
the transition would occur like out here?
yes. Do you want to show me what I'm
I
talking about?
understand.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
So it'd be
from the
4
front-
foot along the road, though.
Yeah, it'd be 4 foot in the front of the yard, on the sides, but then once it gets past the back facade, it transitions up to 6.
And whether, when we're saying whether it's gradual or like an instantaneous,
I'd rather not be an
That's-
instantaneous,
yeah,
it
I
just
mean,
looks weird.
I think we should probably like just,
But do
What
we-
type of transition do you want? Do you want, since we need to try and get details in here so that everyone's on the same page, you know, do you want like a 45-degree angle transition? Do you want some type of, I don't know what they have, if it's some type of like curved?
Well, I wish I was trying to
or
find a
what it
picture of
is.
the other one over there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm comfortable having the applicant work with Emily on something.
I think I would like, if okay, I'd like to just be straight, because from the road, you're gonna see the 4 foot. You'll see 4 foot down the center, and then all you're gonna see is a straight foot. If you're looking head on, you'd see go to 6 foot, 4 to 6. From the side, you might see that, but I think this, I don't know, I
Okay.
see too much of that. I'm not sure that,
Well, that's fine, that was just one suggestion. I mean, if it's at the back of the house, you're right, between the houses, it may not be as dramatic. I think why it's dramatic on Washington Street is because it was right on the road and was at the front of the house. It wasn't right up on Washington Street, so I'm comfortable
Yeah.
without a transition.
You know, I know it's kind of like an added cost, but there could be the suggestion of putting some type of like, that added 2 feet be some type of other detail besides the board on board, like some type of crisscross or,
Decorative.
you know, something, I don't know if that might be an option.
On top of the 6 foot fence?
Well, you got the 4 foot, same all the way across, but then when you get to that one point, you can do, you know how you have like the cross grids with, framed in the box on top of it, or something of that sort. That's always an option too. If you wanted to give them,
But then it
a
wouldn't
6 foot
match
option.
the back,
yeah.
so
True.
it might be too much.
Too much?
Yeah.
Okay, just an option to throw out there. I thought I'd see what you guys thought.
Why don't we do this, we'll approve the transition from 4 to 6, but give you the option if it makes sense to have some sort of transition, that you work with Emily
okay.
to address that change.
And also the option of just keeping it all 4.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, that would be, I'll be supportive of that.
Okay.
So all 4, 4 to 6, and then possibly if there's a little, maybe even a shorter, instead of going from that point to the front like that, maybe even a shorter, like a 45, that might come out like 3 feet or something like that.
But at your election, so.
Okay, good. I want to make it look good. I got to sell them. But I'm also thinking about what the homeowners like in the future too.
When you leave tonight, just right across from the community park.
Okay.
It's called the Haymarket Station. It's white fencing instead of like the white vinyl fencing. That's what I was referring to.
Okay.
Emily,
Yes.
do you understand where Marchant was saying that the 6 foot would start?
Yes, at the rear facade of the home.
Yeah, so maybe we could just make a little drawing or something to
Yes.
pass in.
Will do.
Great. Okay. I make a motion to approve ZP number 2019-021 with, let's see, the condition that the fence be 4 foot in the front on Fayette Street and going to the rear where the rear of the home begins, and then the applicant has the option to continue with 4-foot fencing to the rear fence or to increase to 6-foot board-on-board fencing, keeping the same materials that he used for the rear fencing.
With the option of the transition, did you mention that?
With the option of a 45-degree angle transition between the 6-foot and 4-foot, or to get with Emily for a different transition.
Second.
A motion and second. Do you have any discussions? You look kind of puzzled.
No, I'm just being very patient. It should be a simple application. Everything is good.
Okay. Okay, we'll put it up for a vote then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
good night.
Dominic, random question. Have you been able to sell the 2 homes yet? You've been able to sell the 2 homes yet?
Very close, like 6 or 7 times, but not yet.
Good.
So if you want one.
I'm a bureaucrat. I can't afford that. So.
Oh.
See.
Okay, next agenda item. Emily?
So tonight we have application, one second. ZP 2019-020 for the Haymarket Hotel Venture demolition permit of 6706 Jefferson Street. This is an application that we have seen before. Previously, approximately 6 to 8 months ago, it was in discussion at a work session as well as regular session, and a vote was taken. Just to kind of go back over, it's here in my report. The vote was made by the ARB. The applicant at the time, a different applicant than tonight, appealed the ARB's decision, and it was taken to council. The council voted to uphold the ARB's findings and their decision, and so the structure remains as it stands today. So this is a new applicant applying, and Stan Smith, the property owner, has signed as acknowledgement for this. So I would like to invite the applicant up to discuss any additional findings, information, concepts that they would like to share with you at this time.
Okay.
Chairman Luerson, members of the board, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. It's a real honor. We got to sit in on a meeting a couple of months ago when we were in town, and it truly is American democracy at work. My name is William Murray. I've been in the hotel business for 37 years. I've done over 200 hotel projects, either management or development. My business partner, Ryan Morgan, his family, his wife's family, is from the Haymarket area, and he knew of the character and personality of the town and approached me last summer and said we need to, pursue a hotel there. We were the developer that was on the Crossroads development for the Hilton Garden Inn there, and that site just became unworkable for us. It just would not, it was not large enough to do what we needed for it to do. Now, when I came to Haymarket the very first time, I was shown the Payne site, and I fell in love with it because of the historic nature and character of the downtown and the intersection there at the middle. I thought that a hospitality asset there would be a tremendous boon for the city, but it was not available to us at that time. So we continued to proceed with this project until we couldn't go any further, and then this site became available to us. And so when that happened, we became very excited, and we started to work on it. And so we now are coming tonight, to ask you to reconsider our permit, which is for the same thing. We've chosen Haymarket because of the relationships that we have, because of the community and what we think it means. And so that's important to us. We plan to build a 125-room, full-service Hilton hotel that we think will be a game changer for the town and for the local market. It will have a full-service component, so it will have a restaurant and bar. It will be a gathering place for the community, a place for celebrations, a place for get-togethers, a place to come after work or on the weekends for brunch. It would have 2,500 square feet of meeting space. It would have a large, expansive gathering area that would include a restaurant and bar that would celebrate the local heritage of the town and the culinary and other aspects of food and beverage from Virginia. And it would seek to pair items that are culinary from Virginia with spirits and wine and beer that is locally marketed. We think that is part of the process of telling the story of a location, and we think that people that are traveling want to experience those sort of things rather than just being in a box by the interstate. So all of those things take a lot of space, and there is a limited amount of space that we have on the site. The museum is extremely important to us. I am a historian by nature. My minor in college was history. I've been to every Civil War battlefield in Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania as a serious student of the Civil War. And in that process began to really appreciate the preservation that has happened here. But as I began to understand even beyond that, back to Revolutionary War times, amazing things happened here and on this corridor, the hallowed ground corridor, that I didn't even know about until Emily explained it to me. But this town is at the center of that, at literally the center. And I think to have a tourism asset in the middle of that would be a major boon for the city and would be a very positive thing for our development. Hospitality has a greater purpose, and that's why the name of my company is Purpose Lodging. We not only create jobs, and good jobs, jobs that have career possibilities. I started as a front desk clerk 37 years ago and became president of a company. So if anyone has the perseverance to last a year in our industry, they literally can get to a career that can change their family's life. So we think that's important. We think it's important that hospitality tells the story of a community. And this community has a tremendous story to tell going back to 1799. We think the things that have happened in the meeting place here are phenomenal, and we want to celebrate those. So hotels bring green dollars from tourism, and this community already has a vehicle to capitalize upon that. So we don't need another hotel by the hospital or a hotel that's in the county. We feel like, just from what we've learned, we need a hotel in the town. And so in that process, we think this is the prime spot to do it. We are under contract. We are in our evaluation period now that lasts 90 days. So we have to, during that 90 days, figure out that we can put all the entitlements in place that we need. We have our debt. We have our equity completely in place. We'll be traveling up with our partners in early July, for all of them to see exactly where we are. But Ryan and I are at the heart of this. This is our project, and it is one that we are tremendously excited about. So having said all of that, we think that this hotel will be a source of pride for the community. It will be a place that you will want to walk by and drive by and point to. We have already enlisted an army of professionals to do the due diligence work that we have to do, starting with traffic. We do not want to be a burden in any way to the town in terms of traffic. VDOT has spoken fairly clearly, and we agree totally with what they've said in terms of adding a third lane to Jefferson, to keeping our entrance off of Washington so that we don't put any stress on that street. We agree totally with that. We believe very strongly in the sidewalk factor that the town has already worked on. We think that adds to the beauty of the hotel. We're excited about adding that on to Fayette. And so from those standpoints, we want to make sure that we're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's to make sure that we're good citizens. 22 years ago, I stood in front of an angry mob in Telluride, Colorado, and anyone who's been there knows sort of what its development process is. And they didn't know me literally from, as the saying goes in the South, the Adams house cat. And I assured them that the project that we were doing would be something that they would point to with pride. And very understandably, they came and spoke out in great measure against the project. But we persevered, and at the end, they saw that we were people of our word. And I can remember standing at the Bob Dylan concert in Town Park with the same people who had, who had been arguing with us through the whole process, and we had proven ourselves to all of them. We're celebrating that night, as a storm broke over the mountain, and Dylan saying, a hard rain's going to fall. And we were all friends at that point. And that hotel, the Hotel Telluride, became the 9th best ski hotel in North America, according to Condé Nast. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the Tutwiler in Birmingham, Alabama, my hometown, because I wanted to tell my community's story. And I did that through 42 pieces of art that were professionally curated with a historian and a museum quality audio piece that told that story from the first founding to Dr. Martin Luther King with the civil rights era to, the very modern transformation that's happened to our city. We want to do that very same thing across the street, to celebrate that in every aspect. Now, there is one thing that is in the way. We need every piece of that property that's left to us. And there is a structure there that we value very highly. We wish there were a solution. We hope there's a solution, and maybe someone will come forward in a solution that would move it. But time is of the essence for us to keep our project moving forward. And so I hope that tonight you will, have lots of questions for me, and that our project will stand muster. Because literally, if it doesn't stand muster, it doesn't deserve to be here. And so whether that's a citizen or you as an official of the town, I'm proud to be here to answer questions as much as I can. We're really excited about where we are, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. And I hope that you will give us a vote tonight, up or down, on this permit. So, thank you.
Would you like to start? Because I know...
Well, first of all,
no, go ahead.
first of all, exciting to have you here. I mean, I think it was a pretty kind of bittersweet moment to see the structures across the street go down. I've been ribbed a little bit about, my efforts and my participation as part of this board in making that happen, but it was a reality and it had to come down. I'm sure with you aware of the background, this is the historic crossroads. And as we begin to lose some of the value of that, as we begin to deconstruct a lot of our buildings. So in my mind, there was an opportunity to try to repurpose the property, but also try to look into ways to adaptively reuse the building in the back. So, but that doesn't say, I don't think anyone up here would say we're not interested in seeing that be a successful project. I think the challenge that we have is the very little information that you offered. So could you walk us through a little bit about our ordinances require a discussion of, or a written narrative of, what alternatives that have been explored and why they weren't viable. You've touched on that with needing the entire floor space, but have you looked in? We've had a lot of hypothetical discussions about what it would take to reuse that building, but we haven't really had someone investigate it with any amount of detail or realistic cost estimates. So have you had the opportunity to look at it to see if it's either viable or movable or anything like that?
Well, all we've seen are the structural engineer reports
Okay.
that, are fairly negative about the project of the building as it is right now. Could it be moved? I don't know. I think that's an important consideration and discussion that we need to have. We'd like to see that happen. But in order for us to fit the footprint of the building, and even get it to within 6 stories, which is what it takes now, that requires a height variance, obviously, to make that happen, to get to 125 rooms and the parking that's required to do that. So from that standpoint, we need every square inch of that site. And it will, basically, the building's orientation will be right along Jefferson. So it would, the back edge of the building would sit right where the existing structure is. I'm glad to answer any questions about, the project as we see it right now, in terms of what it will have, other than what I've, told you about right now.
Are you-
We're preparing all of that, application for a special use plan now.
Are I guess you tend to activate the streetscape, are you having first floor retail and rooms above, or are you putting your convention space and your restaurant space on the first floor?
We think it's very important for the restaurant and meeting space to be on the first floor. So we're not going to move anything to a second floor except for the fitness center. So above the first floor, there will only be guest rooms and a fitness center. We're not going to put any rooftop bar or anything like that. The restaurant and bar that will celebrate, the famous meeting here, will spill out into the patio. We hope, with your approval eventually, we'll have some sort of operable garage-type doors that bring the outdoors in and the indoors, out. But we're using every square inch of that first floor. No guest rooms will be on the first floor.
I guess the question is, are you activating the streetscape? Is there going to be some activity on the street that people can engage with?
Yes, sir. There are two doors, one off of Jefferson and one off of Washington into the food and beverage space. And that patio would be on the corner of the building that would front to Washington. And that makes us feel better about not having an entrance, even an in or out there, because we think that's better used as patio space right off of the streetscape.
Marchant, before we go further with more details about the hotel, my heart is like literally pounding out of my chest right now. First of all, I think we need to focus on the demolition, which we recently just denied. And I realize that this is another applicant, but this is basically the same application. And I don't know about how everyone else feels here, but my feelings haven't changed. You can rewind back to the tape. We're trying to preserve the history here. We're trying to preserve the architecture. And before we even start discussing the possibility of a hotel, especially with someone like Hilton, you would think that they have plenty of money to incorporate the building, to renovate it. If someone like myself and my family can do that to similar structures, then I know that Hilton would be able to afford to do that and incorporate it. But going on to the height, I apologize because my voice is so shaking because it's just a lot. But I did receive an email from one of my neighbors. She says, Mrs. Cavazos, recently I heard that there may be a request zoning text amendment to alter the height restrictions for the lots that were cleared between Washington Payne Streets and Jefferson Fayette Streets. As a town resident who enjoys living in a small town with a quaint main street, I'm not in favor of any buildings being developed that would be several stories high. And I did go through page 7 of our ARB design guidelines, and it talks about the historic walking central portion of the town. And it says visual interest should be encouraged through the use of height variations ranging from 1 to 3 stories, not 6 or 7. And even just driving down the street and looking at the different buildings, the closest with the retail on the bottom and the residences on the top, I think is, what, 3 or 4?
4, I think.
4. And that's quite a bit higher than the museum and the bank building. Imagining 6 or 7 stories right there to me is unthinkable, but I'll go back to her email. In other words, nothing taller than what's already in existence. As a resident who feels strongly about historic preservation, I was glad to see that the home on the corner of Jefferson and Payne remains standing, and I am hopeful that it can be rehabilitated to its original splendor. I've spoken with several neighbors who have the same or very similar feelings. I urged each of them to share those feelings in person at a meeting or in writing. Please feel free to share my views and concerns with other council members and ARB members. Thank you for your service. We appreciate your time and effort. Sincerely, Amy Moore. I'm not saying I would be completely opposed, and we're not even to this point, but to like a boutique hotel or something. But the height, already talking about demolishing the one building that we worked so hard to try to save, and that's why we're really here, is just to discuss that. Obviously, I mean, I cannot vote to like approve that application.
Some other thoughts on it too?
Yeah, This is for the demolition, so I think that's what we got to focus on right now. Like we've been saying, not any more information has been really given to us as opposed to what was given when Smith brought it up. So it's kind of difficult for us to discuss. The thing is, there were no discussions with Smith about the alternatives to this, whether this building can be moved, and that dialogue was kind of squashed. That was immediately squashed by the owner at that time. That is something at least we can discuss now to see if there are other options that you can use, and your willingness to approach these options as opposed to totally laying this down. But right now we do have to kind of teeter on if we do approve a demolition thinking that something's going to move forward, we've just lost that resource. And then if all of a sudden the variances get shot down, we got a raw piece of land without a resource that we treasured for so long.
Yes.
So, I hope you can see our conflict.
Yeah.
But I would like to say that we are willing to work with you and discuss other opportunities, like if we can find somebody who would be willing to accept it and have some type of movement for it, or any other things. Do you have anything you can add on this, Mike?
Sure, I guess I can back up a little bit. So Emily, one of the things you said in your report was rehash. I don't know if you were here for the discussion last time. So we have a couple of governing, just to kind of rehash how we got to that previous point. We have the comprehensive plan, we have the design guidelines, we have the zoning ordinance. The comp plan establishes policies regarding the historic district and specifically speaks to, in this area, trying to adaptively reuse as many of the resources as possible, acknowledging that our property owners have not always been the best stewards of the land or steward of these resources over time, and we've lost a lot of them. So, but the policies say in the plan, they list that structure as a specific resource and encourage that we explore all options with which to encourage adaptive reuse. There's been a lot of discussion about the fact that these structures don't have a local or a national level. Somehow they don't have a meaningful presence in the town. We've spoken a lot about the architectural significance. I'm sorry, back up. But what it doesn't say is, or doesn't address, is that these buildings have a local vernacular and tell how we've developed over time. I'm of the opinion that the town burned after the Civil War, and we've adaptively had to reinvent ourselves. So I think that's why our eclectic architecture is particularly meaningful, and I encourage new development. I think new development should come in and do those types of things. But nonetheless, the policies say these resources not having this national or state have value, and we should explore those options with which to preserve it. So then we go to the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance says B1 district, you're supposed to reuse as many buildings as possible, and they recognize the economic value. These two structures, some folks get upset when I refer to these were arguably much more conditioned than that one, but the town took the risk, invested in them. We had renters before they were even finished, and these have been economically viable, or at least contributing resources to the town. We have other owners in town, you may have known this, that have picked up houses and moved them, adaptively reused a lot of our structures. So I think we have the brainpower and knowledge to help you with your project, but in light of the current ordinances which say you should try to reuse as much as you can, and the fact that we've lost so many resources, in my mind, the idea was to try to work that out. We have matters for consideration in the zoning ordinance that talk about what does it mean to lose these resources, does it disrupt the historic nature of the town, and we've concluded before that the application didn't meet that standard. We also have guidelines that say, hey, you're supposed to have a pretty detailed explanation of what alternatives you explored and why they're not viable. And so we had come up with a series of findings saying, with that previous discussion, we went through each property, each structure, and voted on each one, and came to that one and did not feel it raised to the level to warrant the demolition. We recognize it's an abandoned structure. There were some concerns about public safety, and we've addressed those, I believe, with the police department. In our mind, there's some responsibility of the property owner to have maintained that property. We have a demolition by neglect. So that's how we've come, kind of rehashing the last discussion. That's what we based our decision on, not having much more than, not even the narrative of what was discussed before. It really puts us in a awkward position to move away from, on the hope that you may come through. I agree with the chairman that if we were to agree in concept what you want to do, but then the project's abandoned, we've lost the resource and the opportunity to do that. I can appreciate you're in a due diligence period. I do land use review in the county, Loudoun County as a living. I understand the costs, the carrying costs, the due diligence period. So if there's a way that we can work with you to vet some of those other options, to maybe think of some creative ways to address that without having to agree on a concept tonight, we're being asked basically on a concept to vote on it tonight, and I find that difficult. So we have people in town that can do it. When we put these two buildings up for rent, there was all these people in the community that we didn't know about it that were interested in them. So imagine if you put it out, that who might be interested in it. I'm sure you could find someone that you could partner with to make that happen. There's also a project I wanted to share with you. This is Courthouse Commons up in Leesburg, right across from my office. Same situation, 2 lots, 2 buildings. The ARB up there let go of one, kept a historic structure, demoed it back to the original footprint of 600 square feet, and then built around it. It was also on a slope similar to this property. So Payne Lane here drops below Washington Street. Same issue there. They were able to build a first level parking deck to go out the back side of the building. So that is some case studies on maybe how to maximize the critical mass you need to make that a successful project, but then respect what the goals are. So, Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I pass these out real quick? So,
Feel free.
Any questions on what we just downloaded on you?
Not at all.
So, I'll give you a copy of one of these. So what you see, Emily, there's some for you guys too, members of the audience. So.
If I may just add one thing, maybe also let's discuss, is there any way to do a study or, in your professional field, do we know how much it would cost to rehabilitate the structure? Is there a way to find that out and get a good measure, whether it be from the applicant or, does the town, do we work on something, but is there a good way to get an idea there?
I think so, or just partnership. If we can come up with a partnership, link you with someone who would want to use that structure and figure that out. The challenge is I recognize you're in a 90-day due diligence period. So I'm at a loss as to how to help you with the tools and make the connections to try to vet that and still honor your timeline. So real quick, what I passed out, this is the structure I was telling about. What you see in the middle is the historic structure. You see that small one fronting the street. The new building was about 16,000 square feet, was wrapped around it. And then if you look at the last picture of the south elevation, you see how they were able to build a semi first floor parking structure in the back. I do see that being a challenge for you in the town, given the limited amount of parking, on how to do that. But here's something that was, footprint of 600 square feet, was able to be incorporated in it. Is this something you could talk to your engineers about and say, can we at least vet that option? It's tucked back on the corner of the property. If you were to take the additions off the back and just bring it up to just that small little footprint, how much would that impact? I think the parking on a building, if you were to reduce that addition and come down to just the square footage, you would probably only need 2 or 3 parking spots to serve that use. So that's not eating away from the minimum amount of parking that you need to serve your use. So you see what I'm saying? Just
and we may gain that back by not having the in and out
exactly
on Washington.
So, great opportunity here, great way to have a partnership.
Well, we celebrate that.
And I'm not sure how we accommodate your due diligence period without losing the resource permanently. So that's.
I understand your position.
Yeah, it's kind of my overarching thoughts. So.
I think I'm in agreement. I think the decisions that we made as a group, I think we came to the conclusion that building was going to stay. I think not all of us agreed, but it's overall for the improvement and the betterment of the town. And I think clearly, like a lot of people within the town, citizens believe that that there's a lot of them see that as a sore site, and it's in disrepair, it's falling apart. I mean, it's pretty bad. But I also see people who see this as like a historic, that has value. And I think I totally disagree with people who, when they say that it doesn't have value because it doesn't have a national or like a state level value. I think that completely goes against what I think Haymarket is as a town. From there, I think there's also, to speak to what you said, the application is practically the same, and I know you mentioned that too. I think there needs to be, more due diligence with that. I think that would give us, even if we were to say agree to the demolition, it would have to be enough for us to say, okay, yeah, they did what they could, they tried, and there really is no way, give or take. Then we could feel better about approving it. But I don't think, I think going back to you, there's that time constraint, and I understand that as well.
One other thought came to mind. What about a letter of agreement? There was a letter of agreement from the ARB that says we're committed to working with you on providing ultimate solutions up into and to include either moving the structure or ultimately having to demolish it. Does that get you back to your creditors?
I think that's a great suggestion,
Okay.
Mr. Schneider. I would entertain that, absolutely.
Okay. So a couple of options. Is that, before I go further on that, is that a consensus that if it's not maybe we defer the application or some other thing that keeps us from having to vote it down but commits us to working with it?
I would not agree with that idea.
Okay.
No.
It all depends on what we would be agreeing to, for me.
A letter of agreement's not a binding agreement. It's more of
Well, yeah, we definitely would like to work with you and see this succeed, but
maybe it's not an LOA, maybe it's a letter of intent. I don't know what the mechanism is, but
So, for instance, if the height requirements that you're hoping to get, if they are not approved, what will you do then?
We wouldn't be able to do this project.
Okay, so I feel like there are so many other steps ahead of this one, because if we're talking about the demolition and approving it, or a letter of intent, and then, or the demolition goes through, but the height requirements aren't met, then they're pulling out anyway. So I feel like this should be something that is looked at after all of that.
yeah,
what about? Okay.
I don't think we would be able to make a decision. If we were forced to make a decision tonight, I'm sure it would
Right.
probably be no. But with helping to move forward, we can always put in the agreements to work with you, that we are open to moving if we can find somebody who's offering up real estate to place it down on, maybe making some other type of adjustments, like Marchant was saying with this agreement.
But
Yeah,
what if someone, just agreeing to have it moved makes me nervous too. It would have to be knowing that the building's going to be repurposed and protected, because anybody could move it onto a piece of land and just let it continue to rot, and then it's not on our town, and we're
I
not
don't think that
protecting it.
still addresses her concern that it's still against our, ordinance to have it above 3 or 4 stories.
right, well,
And-
that's
and-
outside our group. Those discussions are outside our group.
But I think the point is the viability of it.
Yeah.
They can't get through that process. Now, I think the other tool we used to have is to say it's contingent upon approval of this other project, but I thought Martin had counseled against
Yeah,
that.
he
Yeah.
did.
But to me, that would be the easy tool, say you agree to not touch the structure or not mess with the structure up and until there's an entitlement. Now, the other challenge is the building's sitting there rotting. I think we've reached out to Mr. Smith to try to get him to do it. It says in the ordinance, we shall not allow buildings to be deteriorated to the point where it's not economically viable to even try to redo it. And Emily, you've not had any other contact from Mr. Smith to
His
fix it?
representative will be coming back tomorrow. I mentioned to Chairman let's discuss that tonight. If you guys give me another directive to speak to him again about this, he will be here tomorrow, so I will bring it up again.
I think the other option with that, to address the current condition, is we have $50,000 in the council budget to address blight as a separate motion, or have them go and enforce the blight ordinance to stabilize the property. Maybe we talked to Martin about revisiting, saying, hey, we have someone that is contingent upon multiple things happening. Could we agree to something that says only any consideration of that demolition, moving, whatever have you, is only revisited at the time that these other approvals are done? I mean, there has to be a way to be able to do that.
The other question I have is, and this is all hearsay, but with the Melodon project, I heard that, was it the daycare wasn't going to go through, and I think we're having a planning meeting with them. So is it possible that there'll be more room over there? Because to me, a 7-story or however many, I think we already increased it. I can't remember what we increased the height restrictions to. It would make so much more sense over there.
Well, I agree with you that that is an acceptable location for a hotel, but it would not have the same art and character that a boutique-type hotel would have.
But I think a 6 or 7-story hotel to me doesn't seem as boutique-y. Something smaller in scale to me is more boutique-y. And I'm not saying, I mean, we already approved a hotel over there. And I think that if Melodon has more room, that maybe that would be something that you could work with them to see.
We cannot go any further unless he has some change of heart. Because that's his project and I can't speak to it.
Yeah.
But we talked extensively for months. Could never reach a resolution. Our main concern was to have a hotel in the town, and the Crossroads development was perfect for us. There's no question. The deal changed several times and prevented us from being able to do what we had to do. Because there is an economic scale that you have to be able to meet to make the project work. It's already, at $150,000 a key as it is, and eventually the economics don't work, and you can't make it happen. We've looked at it in dozens of ways, how we could make it work economically, and this is the best answer. It's about a $150 a night, historic looking, destination, upper upscale corporate, hotel that would have a tremendous following on the weekend too. And it would add so much to, what I think the town is trying to do, in terms of tourism. But there is that 15 feet that, will be at issue at some point. I'm not trying to
The 15
do that
feet?
tonight. To get to 65 feet for the roof deck.
What about, I know we're a little off topic about it, but, so this example that I showed you, it's 3 stories on the street, it's 4 stories in the back. Are you able to hide some of that height by building into the slope from Washington Street back to Payne Lane? To hide some of that massing?
I don't know that that's not possible. Of course, it's much more efficient to build a straight building than one that would shape in an L.
Not even an L shape, but not like this, but just able to hide, I'm not so much making an L shape, but just, if I'm on Washington Street, it doesn't have the effect of 6 stories. I see that being a problem, given that it's going to be taller than the museum. But if you're able to give a smaller height on the front, but be able to capture some of that square footage by having that story on the back, does that make sense? So there's still a square, but you're hiding it in the slope, kind of like a walkout basement. From the front of my townhouse, it's 2 stories, but I have a walkout basement, and from the back facade's 3. So that might be a way to address that as well. We have people in town that can do these types of things. So thinking out loud, Mr. Chairman, maybe the other option is, I think we're left with if we're only left with the option of denying it tonight. Maybe we send with that denial, say, we're willing to work with that and work into some agreement, but we felt like there wasn't, we were asked to vote on it night, and we didn't have enough information to consider the alternatives. I mean, that's the way to address it. What I don't want to have happen is have this to go up, not have, unless Emily, you're able to capture a lot of our discussion, we designate her to kind of capture that discussion, but that's the other option too. Deny it because of the timeliness of the request or the limited information of the request. Let's say we would look into one, some sort of approval that would say that that building's not touched until these other entitlements go through. Two, that the staff goes out and addresses the current deterioration of the building. And that three, that we will work, that we agree to work with the applicant to either pair you up with somebody or work with you if there's other barriers in the zoning ordinance, like I think there's some lot coverage and some other things that you may run into. How do we identify those barriers? I'm not saying that it's a done deal, but I'm just saying I think there's a way to respect our ordinances and our guidelines, but then give some opportunity to visit it, to somehow revisit it, and then not let that building continue to fall apart, because it looks terrible, and it's falling apart quickly. That when windows open, we had all these rainstorms, so it's getting worse. I think this is a sidebar that we talked with Emily about trying to get some of the vegetation off, but the concern was the guy goes out there with a bucket, yanks it all off, and then you pull off the side of the house. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
We'll pick your brain. What do you need to move forward with? Can you go with a rejection tonight under the understanding of the openness that we have here? Or what do you need to at least progress a little further for you to, is this a deal crusher or?
No, it's not a deal crusher because we want to be here. I appreciate, Marshawn, you're coming forth with some suggestions that, that give us something to continue the conversation about. I hope that I would convince you tonight that this was, something that's good, but I understand your position, and I understand your passion about it, and I appreciate and respect that. And again, at the end, we want to be good citizens in this town too, and honor all of those overlays and rules and regulations and zoning things too. I think what you have suggested, Schneider, is a very appropriate next step.
What did you hear?
It keeps a discussion going, some non-binding letter of agreement, that we will work together to come up with a solution as we're working through the special use plan process.
I think that this is a demolition permit or request. We need to approve, deny, or table. I don't feel like a letter is appropriate right now because we don't even know how the citizens in the town feel about everything. We don't know how the planning commission feels about it. We haven't met as a council. So I don't understand why we need to do a letter at this time. I think that he's here with the same exact application that was here before. And I don't think that at this time we have enough information to say yes, we want to work with you. I'm not saying that we don't, but I just don't think at this time that that's something that we need to do. I think we just need to approve, deny, or table.
What's our length for tabling? 45 days? That gives you 45 days to work on it. Is it okay if we table it?
That's fine, maybe till the next meeting, we would get our work done before your next meeting.
What would we want to do with, what would we want to accomplish at the next, I'm not being facetious, I'm just saying really, if we
Well,
bring it
by
back.
the next meeting,
More information?
they'll probably have come to the planning commission, they'll probably have come to, town
The
council.
council.
It'll be a little bit more information, hopefully more plans, more details, and then we can talk further about it.
Don't misunderstand me, Bon. I think we have every ability to deny it this evening and have standing with which to do that. But I think at the same time, how do we how do we honor that decision, or how do we, honor those policies, but at the same time, I think if it sends a denial up without sort of an explanation of where we're at, and it gets appealed to the council, how do they know that context? I mean, they can listen to the videos and those types of things, but.
That
but I would-
that is what will happen.
Yeah, and then I would rather go to I would rather send that denial with some sort of, maybe it's not a letter of agreement, but just a narrative that says,
To
we
the
discussed,
council.
to the council, that says, we've discussed this option of some sort of letter of agreement, that would probably be more with the council and them, on how to do that, but it gives some guidance on the rationale behind why we had no other choice but then to deny it, but we're not saying that there's no otherwise some opportunity to try to make it work. Does that make sense? So it's kind of doing both. Hey, we have really no other option, they need that decision, but here, council, this is what we need, and we would prefer that you wait out that entitlement before any sort of action on it.
Or we could table it and do the same. Table it and send a letter to the council explaining why we tabled it.
Okay.
Because we don't have enough information, and we don't have plans, and we don't know how the planning commission feels about it and how everyone else does.
Would that time also,
Because if
we've
we
talked about a lot of
deny it-
ideas tonight, does that allow you some time? Does that allow, I guess it allows them time to go back and take some of these ideas and see if they're viable
Yes.
too? Okay,
And if we deny it and then it's appealed, I feel like that moves things along even faster.
okay, I see your point. Okay, I see.
So maybe we should table it and send a letter
Okay.
as to why we're tabling it.
Okay. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Before we, I guess, do this, I'd like to take a recess
Okay.
for like about 5 minutes, let people kind of ponder their thoughts. When we do take a recess, though, you guys need to understand that we can't talk to each other. That's what the recess will be for. I can't let you come up. It's past citizens' time, but,
Okay, I can take a restroom break anyways.
okay. So we'll recess for 5 minutes?
Yes. Do we need to take a motion or are we okay?
Nope, I can call it. John was biting at the bit, so I know, and I couldn't call you out, so.
So, you don't need a letter to the council, it's in the minutes. Okay, your motion can be, we're going to table, and we're going to tell the council, and you can tell the council, because you're the council's rep, what the deal, it's not a deal, but what you're doing. It'll take him 10 minutes to knock that house down.
Exactly.
If he needs to, or if you agree to that, in 45 days, he'll have hard concepts, hard drawings. If it's the most fabulous hotel ever, and you're like, I'll get rid of that house in a heartbeat because it's a great thing, he'll meet his time schedule. But if you crush it down, you're right.
That's
You
why
lose
I
it
don't wanna
forever.
approve
That's
it.
fine. But
I
if you
wanna
vote
either
no,
deny or table.
you've had 2 no votes, and then it doesn't make any sense then to change it later. You should not vote on it. He should have come with drawings. He should have come with a sell to you to make that the best hotel ever. And he didn't do that. He's asking you on faith. So,
And he's a sweet talker, too.
he's good, and he may be fabulous. We should hear him. We should listen to him. We should not give up the house now.
Right.
We may want to give up the house later. We may not. I'm just saying. I agree. I want to see
I'm not
drawings.
supposed to talk to, but Hilton can make that into an adorable coffee shop right outside of their hotel. They could, I mean,
could do
there's
whatever.
1,000 different options.
Let's see what the thing
Yeah.
looks like. It could be 7 fabulous stories. But if he doesn't
No,
get over
he
the height
can't.
thing, if he can't get over the height thing,
Yeah.
nothing changes.
No, Lloyd, yeah.
So that's the main thing. He's got to get over that hurdle before you do anything else.
I
That's,
was just gonna mention, if it is tabled and bond, maybe, council, there can be some kind of directive to ensure, sorry, just 3, sorry, just to ensure that the planning commission hears it.
What I wanted.
Because I just want to make sure if we bump our meeting in July, I just want to make sure to capture the planning commission meeting.
Well, I could come to the planning commission meeting and speak or something.
Excuse me, a second. Emily, is the audio off or?
Correct. It's possible. So I just want to make sure if we move our meeting, I want to be sure to capture a planning commission meeting in there and a town council meeting. And if we have one more to refer as VTA, but
Yeah.
that can't
Are
be
we
the
still?
only.
on the,
Yeah, tomorrow.
I thought that the planning commission didn't meet or have a forum,
No, that's Monday.
but we're still reviewing that without them.
It's not, no, we have a forum for tomorrow night. They're just there for a work session. The only thing, council needs is to refer, they've received an application, and then by our ordinance of Virginia code, council says, we've received it, we are now referring it to the planning commission.
That's all we're doing.
That's all you're
Okay.
doing for the ZTA part.
Okay,
That's all it is. It's a formality for that.
okay.
But you see what I'm saying? I just want to make sure we have those meetings in there.
yeah, and I need to figure out how we're going to juggle next month's meeting also, because I'm out the 12th to the 20th. Our shop's going to be out. I don't know when you're going to be out, but I think you're going to be out, right?
July.
Yeah, so we're probably going to have to move that meeting to another date. And we'll discuss that later as
Okay.
well.
I can do the following Wednesday if we need to, but you can let me know.
Okay, well, we'll discuss that today. That'll be addressed today.
Okay.
Okay. John was hopping back there, that's why I had to take that recess, because I couldn't call him up. Citizens' time was over with, so.
I know.
But I knew he would have some advice. And I agree with him. It's a or no. It's not an approve. No, I would not approve it.
We've had is the, Martin's weighed in over there. I can't make any of that contingent.
I don't trust.
That's why I want to table it, yeah, right now. Well,
We need to buy as much time as we can until we have more information.
you and Susan are the only two that have a voice. You know, Robert and the dude. They'll sway with whoever pushes it.
Sorry, I did try to get my attention, but
So,
couldn't,
and Connor's a very aggressive
would be our-
pusher, so.
We're not voting on
Connor
it.
could sway
It
both
would be
of
our-
them. So, yeah, I think a table would probably.
Which makes sense, I mean, we'll come to the council meeting, we'll come to planning commission, and honestly, I know what the planning commission thinks of the house. They'd rather see it go down. So it's more so about what's going on in ARB and the council than.
Yeah, I don't know about the rule. I know tape is paused.
Yeah.
When is the next planning commission meeting?
Tomorrow? Because I know yesterday got canceled.
That's just a work session.
Oh,
So
okay.
we have to reschedule our June 17th meeting that was canceled. We are looking at the second week of July.
So what's
Otherwise,
tomorrow?
it's just a workshop.
Okay.
And otherwise, it would be July 15th is the next regular meeting.
What is on the work session agenda?
The work session agenda, Melanon's coming.
Oh,
to
that's right.
speak, And we're going to talk about the playground.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess we need to chat, reschedule meeting next month too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got a lot to chat about today. Tell me when you guys are ready. Yeah, the power.
You always say you don't have the power.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we're back again. Do you have to take roll call again or anything? Okay. I didn't know if you needed to see if anybody left.
Also here.
Okay, we'll continue our conversation. Anybody have any other comments that they would like to make?
I would just like to ask a question more for thought. If it is tabled, do you expect the applicant to come back with any additional materials? Is there anything that you guys would like to request so that it's a productive?
I would like to know the planning commission's thoughts on the applicant's application that's brought to them as far as the height increase and anything else that is brought to you. I want to know the planning commission's thoughts, I want to know the council's thoughts, and I want to know the citizens' thoughts. And I'd also like to see the plans and more details on the actual architecture. I mean, as much information as possible before we can make that decision.
So before next month, I think the action tomorrow is simply initiate the zoning text amendment to just establish the special exception. So I think all the commission's going to look at is the text amendment to allow the request, but the special exception's not going to be reviewed for 4 or 5 months, right?
Correct. Until that ZTA is, if it all goes through, if it's approved, then the SUP will then be submitted for the specific property and the height variance.
I guess in my mind, for next month is, for the applicant, is to, we've talked about a lot of things tonight. We have an example of incorporating the building into the project. Could you look at that? If there are barriers to doing that, can we identify those barriers in the ordinance or in the plans that would have to be addressed to make that happen, if that's the trade-off to make this stay? Always a preference in my mind is to have that building stay in place. Buildings moving, it's great, but you lose the provenance, you lose the context when you move it out of its original location. So to me, that's going back and spending some time, what are the ability to do that? Working with the staff to perhaps identify potential folks that may be interested in using that. I think part of it is, your question is, well, who would want to, we put this time and expense into rehabbing it, and no one wants it. So I think working with staff, I think some folks have reached out, potential interest in it, make that connection with the applicant and see if that's going to be a fruitful discussion. I think moving it's the least favorite option in my mind, but it's, is there other opportunities in town to accept that building if it is to be moved? Can we work with Emily and the applicant and folks that we know in town to say, hey, is there, whether it's us or somebody else that accepts that building, let's talk about that and what barriers are to that. And then maybe have the applicant, if you're willing to do that, have some sort of written narrative or written response. This is all online, you can listen to this meeting, but if you can summarize kind of, we've thought about it, here's what we've been able to accomplish in that short period of time. And then, I guess with the council, is that we table it, but send to the council, if you're comfortable with that, maybe we talk about, hey, we talked about having some sort of, establishing our agreement with or our agreement to work with the applicant, nothing concrete, but working with the applicant to figure out what alternatives might be viable, having the council address the immediate need for the blight. What else for the council? Basically conveying that we're in a difficult position given the fact that they're not able to provide really any detail. And it's a difficult position for us to be able to vote on that. We feel justified in reiterating our previous decision, but we're not able, we don't have all the tools that we need, especially on the timeline that they're trying to do. It's a long sentence, but does that make sense? What do you guys think about something like that? So maybe not a letter, but
Yes, I'd be happy to bring back a summary of everyone's thoughts.
report out on the
I'll
council.
do the same for planning commission as well.
Okay.
Just to keep it.
I feel like we get a bad rap, that the ARB is not agreeable and willing to work with people, so I think, thank you for taking those messages back to at least say, hey, we're within our ability to take this vote based on the criteria. We feel confident in that, but at the same time, we recognize we got to look at other opportunities. So anyway, that's my thought.
The motion.
I think we're ready for a motion.
Trying to outline all that again, or?
I don't think we need to.
We can refer back to the video for, if you reference any of that in the motion.
I make a motion to table ZP number 2019-020. To our next scheduled ARB meeting?
Yes, yes.
Which will be
Yet to be
announcing
determined.
tonight what the date will be.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I got a motion and second. Last chance for any type of discussion. Again, I'd like to direct to you, this tabling period is to allow you to gather any more information you can to substantiate your stance. I think you've gotten the feel for what we're looking for, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any discussion items before we go? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. On that note, I would like to put some directives out there to you, Emily, to go back to the owner of the building and have him, close up the open windows with plywood and remove the vegetation so it doesn't stress the surface of the building as it stands now, using our blight powers, so to speak.
Okay.
Can I, while you're here, I wanted to share another thing. So it's kind of related to the building, but wanted to share that if I could. So during our historic walk, we're going to talk about it later, but we did a historic town walk. Emily and I, and is it Paige from the, who does she work for? The historic?
She works for Prince William County Historic Department at the Brinsville Courthouse.
So at the end of that, a gentleman who was on the historic commission, or one of the historic commissions, Mr. Kimball, reached out to me and said, hey, we have resources at Relic, which is the kind of the genealogy library at Bull Run Library. And I said, one of the challenges that we're having is it's enough for us to, when Emily and I put the historic walk narrative together, what we realized is we're good at describing the architecture, but not a lot about those people that live there. So I went to Relic and got a hold of Mr. Wilson, Dr. Wilson, and he was able to research the chain of title for the property back to its construction. So what we were able to narrow is right around the late 1890s, early 1900s, the Garrett family purchased the property. It's around $150, $100 for the building, $150 for the land. But we were able to establish around that time frame that they built the house. They turned it over to the Butlers, which I think why people call it the Butler Building. Now, what's interesting about the Garretts is Mr. Garrett was a magistrate. Now, it's too late to have been part of the St. Paul's school when St. Paul's was the court, but he had some responsibilities, and then there were some loose papers that talked about him filing a bond to be constable. So he may have been the constable for the town of Haymarket at one point, village of Haymarket. That turned over in the 50s. Gossams and Costellos traded that property back and forth up through the 80s. The Butlers were, Ms. Garrett was a dressmaker, so it was a dressmaker and a magistrate. Mr. and Mrs. Butler, Mr. Butler was a wheelwright. So he worked on wagons and other vehicles, and in the records it shows that where the old yellow building used to be was a barn, and he had his business in there. So kind of connecting the dots, it seemed that he may have run his, it's not a furrier, but whoever does wagon, whatever a wheelwright does, ran that business out of there for the time. So this is something Emily and I have talked about, is going after each one of our resources and starting to connect the dots and really tie it back. At the Baptist church, what was interesting is the woman that gave us the tour of the Baptist church read the names of the original parishioners, and it was all the names that we know, the Jordans, the Holfish. I mean, all those names that we associate with the history were there, so why not start to tie those names? Mr. Holfish owned back here, who's the mayor. So Emily and I talked about trying to run that down, that history. So that's some more information about the property that we didn't have last time we looked at it. So that's something I'll continue to work with Emily on. So Mr. Wilson's going to write that up in a report for us. So That's all I have.
Marshall.
That's very interesting information.
When you look at it, it tells how many times they've been married. When you look at the census data, it's really strange, the stuff that they capture. It's like married one was you're married once, M2, M3, but a lot of it wasn't divorce, it was death. Children, who's living, who died. I mean, it's a little morbid, but it's detailed, so.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we drug this meeting out, so we got to get a move on here. So we'll move on to the next agenda item.
There's more?
There is more. So under new business, we have the town hall building color discussion. So we're gonna proceed with trying to get our building looking better, cleaning it up, cleaning up our own blight. I do have some samples I'd like to share with you guys. I'll pass them around. I just would like to go through them real quick. We have a sample of the siding here. It has the texture. This is one of the colors that we thought might look good. It's a snow color. There's the matching soffit samples and colors here as well. It's flagged, the one that kind of matches with the siding. There's also a pamphlet here on the metal roofs. We flagged the matte black. The contractor that we were speaking with mentioned that the matte black will help not be so, not shimmery, but if there's any kind of warping or over time, anything that would start to show, it'll show more on a shinier surface, so they recommended the matte finish. There's also small shutter samples to look at. We've pulled out the black one here. And then there is the trim color, and you will notice that it has just a little bit of a texture to it to kind of coincide with the siding texture.
What is the siding material?
It's called Allura. I can look it up for you. I have another sample in my,
It's
Is
cementitious
it
though.
vinyl or is it made out of concrete?
I believe it's a concrete product.
A hardy plank. I learned a new word, cementitious. That's what that's called. Emily, can we
That's what I like.
still use the graphic?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go grab.
Let me go get that other siding sample, but here's all the things, and then I'll bring the piece in. Do you guys want to see the piece of metal roofing?
What's that?
Do you want to see the piece of metal roofing?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely like the matte. That's what we have on our house.
Are they,
It's like a dollhouse.
Yeah.
Emily, what was the board discussion, or the council discussion was to go ahead and do interim improvements that facilitate this plan or do something different?
Yes, we have, I think, $200,000 that was set aside for the improvements. And so instead of getting another loan, we were going to use the money that we had to make these improvements.
Okay.
And pardon our very rough image here, we had our intern help us with some paint, but this would be kind of the general concept. Since right now, as Bon just mentioned, we're gonna go ahead with some of the improvements. We wouldn't be able to do all of the changes you see here, because that requires moving our door, moving the door to upstairs, redoing all the windows. So the
Oh, that's
interim would be to paint the brick and then have this siding that comes all the way down. Right now, some of the sides have cinder block. The siding would actually come all the way down and have a nice uniform look on the remaining three sides.
And it would be that when we ultimately do that, then we already have that material on the building. Okay.
That is correct.
And that was the
And
original
then-
material, I think, that we.
Yes, and then we would also go ahead and do the metal roof. You know, that'll last a long time, so that's already invested in there as well.
Will it be in that configuration or?
Yes, so we are getting quotes to go ahead and do that other gable, have that configuration. I believe right now we are leaving off the cupola just due to cost measures. So you can kind of pass this around. These are some of the colors we wrote down in the material types. And then we also have,
What the top bit's called?
this
Cupola?
is the larger sample
Learn a new
of
word.
that.
I need to get the cheat, there's like a cheat sheet of architectural terms I need to get for us.
But in that color.
Yep, and that's
Oh, sorry.
snow color. I was just showing, this is the larger concept of this small siding chip.
Okay, on the three sides? Okay.
Correct.
It would match kind of the general cream color that we're trying to get with the original.
Confused. So the front's going to stay the brick, just be painted?
Yes, so if you go ahead and decide that this is the right color, we will just color match to that
Okay.
for the front
Oh,
paint.
I thought you were trying to do like a whitewash effect or something.
No, that's the limits of technology, unfortunately.
I'm gonna go look outside for that.
You guys need to see this big one.
I love it. I think it's great.
This is for the siding,
So, yeah,
or it's for the shutters?
shutters, yeah.
Great materials and colors.
And then I did just want to mention,
And this is for the trim.
for the soffits, of course, where it needs to be vented, it'll be this piece that's vented. Where it doesn't need to be vented, it'll be solid. Let me see if I covered everything. Allura wood texture, snow white. The soffit is the vinyl snow color, which is flagged there, which I think is a better match than colonial.
I'm sorry, where'd the
Um,
vinyl go?
Just the
soffit
soffits.
underneath the roof.
The metal roof, black matte, and a 18-inch panel width. That is what was measured out and matches that drawing. So you'll get those lines there. Shutters would be the panel style here. In the black, trim would be the snow white here, and gutters would be white.
What would be the material in the soffits, or the, not soffits, what do you call this? Gables.
Here. The gables would be the siding. It
The
wouldn't be
siding.
brick.
Okay,
It'll be that.
gotcha. So that, I just went back out there, I forgot that, right now it is that color scheme where we have white, it's that
Yeah.
whitewash, and then we have the red on the police station, so.
So what were you thinking? Leaving the police station red?
No, I was just,
Oh.
I was having a memory was escaping me. I couldn't remember if it was white, red, or white, red in the middle, so. I'm fine with matching all of it. Do you think eventually we would want to go back to that red, or?
I think eventually the plan is to go ahead and do the improvements. It just triggers so much with an exterior change on the front. Once you move that door, so all those windows aren't the pre-existing windows.
Okay.
Like my window, for example, is much larger, so you'd have to come in and do interior changes in each of the offices to do the right, studs, insulation, drywall, all that work. It just gets
To open up the
cost
windows again,
prohibitive.
So that front exterior would have to be all redone anyway.
Right. So that's why we're just thinking paint now, at least it's starting to, we're improving our site, we're cleaning it up, and we're showing the town that we're, working on it.
Is there any concern about having that much massing the same color? I don't know how we would otherwise break it up. So does it matter that, do people object to the fact that it's three colors now, or the fact that just those colors are faded?
I've not heard one way or the other. I think maybe the thought was if you do it all one color, then you don't have to worry about necessarily the divide of where the red or, a different color
Oh,
were to
okay.
go.
And they are recessed between the
Yeah,
three,
it is.
they're not all flat, they are.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a bump out on that center panel.
When they were doing the renovations upstairs, those were actually three separate buildings,
Yeah.
and you could open it up and see all the
So are
different
you
walls.
thinking to leave the red?
I think it gives variation. I just couldn't remember when people say it's ugly. I mean, it's a utilitarian building. It's not really meant to be anything more than what it is. So,
Another option you could do to give it some crisp, clean lines, we currently have gutters that run down the sides of the two red. You could bring that sharp, black, clean line down and do a black gutter there.
so right here and right here.
Correct.
That would break it up.
Leave the brick.
Yeah, and
red.
then, or do it all white and just have the divide with the sharp, clean black line. That might look really sharp.
Can I draw on this or no?
You may.
So who's got a black pen? So that would be, I'm sorry. That would basically be the effect of this, right? Do I have that
Yes.
right? Okay.
You'll get your divide, but, you know, it'll all
So,
get power
yeah.
washed, it'll all get painted.
So the police station, I think, is set in like a 6 inches or a foot.
That's a good idea.
I mean, I like the
Yeah.
color variation, but I'm not
Yeah, that
not
helps
fixed to
break
either
it up.
or.
That helps break it up.
Is it the round siding or the round downspouts or the like the rectangular?
It's a rectangular with rounded
Okay.
edges, I believe.
So that would be a wider, look more like a band.
It'll
the
kind
black,
of
it
give you
would
that
be good.
column effect
Yeah, get the
here.
6 inch as opposed to the 4 inch for the downspouts.
Either way, just the
And-
curve versus.
Also, I mean, obviously we couldn't add it, but don't forget, you'll have your gable here that also gives you another element
Oh, it does. I forgot
to
about that.
offset it.
Oops. Excuse my tongue. That's why I attempted. So,
Kind of see it, I think.
oh my, yeah, never mind. That's why I'm not an artiste.
Okay.
And when I messed that up, I apologize.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's a working document.
So that would be the standing seam with the gables, the cementitious siding, dividing it up with the dark colors, adding the shutters. I think that'll.
It'll give it a
I'll
nice,
dress it up.
clean, fresh look.
Yeah.
Okay. I can leave this if somebody wants to make a motion and call these items out, the colors here. Oh, that we're playing
Is that
around.
an awning or
It's
we're
black
not going to
metal.
do that?
Potentially, sorry,
Black metal, little
awning. We
Want us
can
to go
put
ahead
that
and
in
talk about that now, or
If you guys would like to discuss an awning, and we can go ahead and get something approved or discussed.
Well, I know we had some type of thought on doing something so that while you're unlocking the door, you're not getting rained on when it's raining.
Yes.
what about if we
So-
did that? Talking about like a standing seam or like a vinyl?
I think it's
Or-
totally
We should just
open
go ahead
for a
and do the-
discussion.
the metal. I mean, while
So
they're
the
already
canvas, you
doing
could
it.
do police station and town hall, because the next question is what are we going to do for signs? That'll be the next, we'll tackle that next.
So, you know,
Yeah.
maybe,
So, but you could put something across.
maybe what we do is we wait until a sign, application, and then we discuss it at that time, or if you're ready to discuss tonight, either way.
Oh, it was more of just, if it was like a canvas awning, then you could put some,
Okay.
I'm glad we're not going that direction, I'm glad we're going with the
I think in our
Okay.
guidelines,
So I
we
guess,
say
the-
no go.
I guess the question would be, would it be
Lettered awning.
freestanding? I guess it would be, maybe we can talk about the details of what that is, but I think the point is, we're agreeable to putting an awning on it, so.
Material.
Okay, yes, so all of the materials are here listed with the color that I've shown you here tonight. Just on the shutters, we
Rather
would
than the
need
louver,
to.
do the panel?
Panel.
Panel, yeah.
And the contractor did mention if it comes time that we ever have to repaint them, of course, they'll probably last about 20 years, but once they fade and need to be repainted, that this was an easier, surface to paint
Yeah,
than
the louvers,
the
yeah.
louvers. So that's kind of one of the reasons we went with that. So
Yeah, I
whoever
like it.
makes the motion, if you just want to add black to the shutter color. And that's it. Do you guys have any more questions on the product, material, color?
I don't.
No, I'm glad the council's going ahead and pulling the trigger.
I'll leave that there for you.
Sorry, man. Traffic jam up here.
Do you want me to read it?
Okay. We don't have any tracking number for the motion though, right?
Why
Is there
don't we
any COA
do?
for that, or?
I will write a COA. I apologize. This will be 023. We have a 22 that wasn't ready for prime time.
Okay.
Hit the power button.
Omni.
Okay, I make a motion to approve ZP number 2019-023 with the following conditions: that the siding be the Allura wood texture snow color, the trim, the Berger snow white, the soffits, the certainteed vinyl snow color, the gutters, are we saying black?
Correct.
The gutters,
On the front, the ones on the rear will probably look best in white.
okay. The gutters on the front be black. Do you guys agree? Or do you want them black on both sides
I'm sorry, black on both sides of
of the building?
Gutters?
the gutters?
Do you want the gutters to be black all the way around?
I don't have a preference either way.
I think that probably would look best.
Either's fine with me.
I just don't know exactly where they come down in the rear. I would have to look. I don't know.
Okay.
If you want to put part of the motion, black or white on the rear, depending
Okay.
on maybe the professional's opinion.
Yeah,
we
and I
could
guess
maybe-
if it's in the same spot, I would stick with the black.
Okay,
Like if it's in the black, in the back in the same locations.
okay.
That the metal roof is the matte black 18-inch. The shutters are the panel style black. And that we would approve the awnings over the door entryways
Okay.
in the black matte metal.
We want to revisit the way it's hung, those awnings are hung later? Or do we, the design of how they're affixed to the building, do we want to look at that later on?
Sure.
Okay.
So we can revisit like the
July
actual.
meeting?
Okay. So we'll revisit the actual style of the awnings
Yeah, I don't know if we do, like, what kind of bracket basically is holding it up.
Okay.
So,
in July. That's all of them.
Second.
Okay, got a motion, second. I think we've discussed this enough. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we shall move forward. Is that all you had for old business, Emily?
Yes, that's all I have for new and old business. I do have a couple town planner items to share. So we're passing out the historic walk brochure. So last year was the very first year, and I know Bond worked with Denise, and they came up with a very nice brochure on the Fayette Street historic properties. So this year we covered the Main Street, and I'm hoping to maybe work with the Architectural Review Board, or if someone in particular would like to assist with this project. I would like to put both of the brochures together, but really expand our historic walk, have something that is accessible on our website as well as here at Town Hall, that citizens or residents could come and do a self-guided tour. I know Marchant and I worked on this brochure a good bit, and we both kind of were scratching our heads at one point where we knew we had backstories of these properties, but we couldn't remember where we had heard them and, a credible source. So, of course, if you guys have information to share, we certainly want to grow and expand this, but I just wanted to share it with you guys that it went very well. We had about 40 people come out from across Prince William County. We've started this partnership now with the Prince William County Historic Department. Paige was a wonderful asset to have here that night. She shared stories with us that we didn't even know. And then we also were able to have, as Marchant mentioned before, someone at the Baptist Church came out, and she spoke for about 30 minutes on just the history of the church and how great it was, to be able to be there tonight and share that. And then also Dr. Landry spoke to how he preserved his building and what his plans are and just some of the fun, facts about QBE. So it was a really great turnout, and we hope to expand on it. So if anyone is interested, or if as a board, we want to celebrate the history and have a work session and continue to work on it, I highly encourage. I think it would be very beneficial to us. So that was that item.
Anyway, thanks a lot.
Yes.
That was very well done. I enjoyed it. I think having 3 people talk about it, kept some variation. On the Facebook, Steve
Yeah.
Shannon responded that he felt it was organized, well-attended, and people had some really good feedback about it. And then just a fun fact I didn't know is there's a graveyard in the middle of the Baptist church.
Yes, you
Oh,
can
you guys
see
knew that.
from
Oh, I
Google
didn't know.
Maps.
They've,
Yeah.
they've built around this graveyard in the middle of it. Can't get to it easily, but
Yeah. And I'll also share, I don't know about you, Marchant, I went into it expecting, an hour-long walk, something just nice, It ended up being 2 hours. We were literally finishing as it was 9 o'clock. It was dark out. You could no longer see the structures, so it was well worth it and a lot of fun, so. Okay. Next item I have, it sounds like we need to look at rescheduling the July meeting date due to summer vacations. So there is one calendar up there. Also, feel free to pull one up on the laptops. Our regular meeting is currently scheduled for July 17th. In order to give our applicant time to have a meeting with the Planning Commission and the council and get some of the answers that were requested, why don't we maybe look at the week of the 22nd? Or even the 22nd? Do we have anything scheduled that night? Okay.
I'm available that week. So the week of, any day that week?
The week of, earlier in the week, probably would be,
I'm open all that week.
Me too.
I'm open.
It should be okay as well.
and I will check with Julia as well. Any day work best for you guys? Do you want to do the 20?
The 24th would work good for me.
Yeah, keep it on a Wednesday since we're,
Keep it on Wednesday?
Fine with me.
Okay, so if someone will just make a motion to officially move it to July 24th at 7 PM, please?
I make a motion to schedule our next ARB meeting for July 24th at 7 PM.
Second.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The only other thing I had was our building and our historic walk, so that's all I have for you tonight.
Very good. Any questions for Emily? So, the fences,
So that is one thing that Stan's, assistant is coming out tomorrow. We're talking about, there is still 2 concrete pads left on the site. Those still need to be removed by the contractor. There's also the old hydraulic lift that's in the ground. You can kind of see it sticking up.
yeah, I was
Um,
going to ask about
Big,
that.
So-
Big Fred's lift.
Yes, so we're still working with them on clearing some more items so that it is fully, safe to remove the fence. We're also working over where the Colonel's house was. There's some thick vegetation in the fence, so it's a work in progress, but he is coming out tomorrow so we can walk the property and get a good idea of what else needs to be done.
Okay,
And I will put in the question and call Mr. Smith. So,
okay. That's all I have. Anybody else?
okay.
Okay, we'll move on then. Planning Commission update.
We had a joint session with the council about the Moon Dentistry moving to the old BB&T building.
To the BB.
To the building, yes. It was actually very quick, efficient. I think everybody was just for it. It was just something to do with our ordinances and zoning issues that really shouldn't have happened, but it was quick, it was good. Other than that, we had the Morris Vineyard, the Aroma site, that came over to us, as well as I think I don't think we approved that yet, right?
It was conditional approval.
Yeah, it's conditional, yeah, and we're waiting, there's that, I think that's, Williams Holding did come to, the meeting as well, and we talked with them about what had changed, that we'd already talked about with the 7, townhomes and stuff like that. I think that was about the gist of it. You know, the same information that was given to us was given to the planning commission, pretty much.
And I'll just add one note on that. Our meeting Monday night was a public hearing for the Williams property. It was canceled, so we will be rescheduling the public hearing. So that will go live on our website as soon as we set a date with the planning commission. We'll notice the property again and then also put it in the newspaper.
When should we expect to see the COA for the units?
For the units,
Here's why I asked, I looked through their PowerPoint, and they had
Yes.
like this really aggressive schedule. They want to like break dirt by November. It's like, well, don't forget about us.
absolutely, no. She's gonna work with the planning commission, and then following a planning commission recommendation, she's gonna come in after that, once she kind of gets a feel for how they feel. If you guys, would like to go ahead and have discussions with her, I can reach out to her as well for a work session, or even.
I'm sorry, what was that?
If you're ready to have discussions with her on the project and she's willing, I can reach out and go ahead and encourage her to come in.
I think it'll be helpful just to get them a head start on any suggestions or changes,
Okay?
so.
I noticed that the ARB agenda wasn't on the website.
Yes, so that was a technical error. What happened is we loaded it in MinuteTrack. For some reason, it saved as a Word document, not our normal PDF. So Julia actually called yesterday. We caught the error. It was uploaded. You're actually viewing it on the website link right now, so it was corrected.
Okay.
If that ever happens again, since we are moving electronic, when you get your link, if for any reason it's broken, you can't download it, please just shoot me an email as soon as you can, so I can make sure it's also there for the public.
Would you indulge me for a second about the BB&T?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to my days of being the planner. So the idea of having medical office be a special use permit was the medical office behaved differently in traffic than with the regular office. And so the idea was, the special exception process was to say, because it's in our core downtown, let's make sure that there's not some unintended consequence of establishing that use there. That use is so small, that building's so small, it eventually had no effect. But the idea was, let's say if a hotel wasn't going to just across the street, it was a big medical office building, that would have a significant traffic impact, and that would have need to have been addressed. So that was, as I remember, the reason why we put it in the ordinance was to give the planner and the council and commission an opportunity to see if it would be a problem for traffic.
Makes sense.
So, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, we'll move on. Town council update.
We approved our fiscal year 2019-2020 budget and tax rate. And there was discussion about increasing the meals tax, but it was voted no. So,
What's happening tomorrow night with the budget adjustments?
I think there was a correction that needed to be made.
Okay. Not a big deal. It's
Hold on, I think I have a note on it. It said a $5,000 mistake and a reduction of $200,000 due to not needing the new financing. That's what the mayor sent to me. All the information I have.
okay. Is it the 200,000 for the building renovations?
I'm unsure
Okay.
of the exact details, so I don't want to misstate
Okay.
anything. I'm sorry.
Come on.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Oh, one more thing. The pedestrian project for Jefferson, is that?
So we've gone out to bid a second time with an unsuccessful attempt, so we have not received any bids. We are working with VDOT, the engineer who wrote the site plans, our engineer and myself, to try to come up with another option to send it out to the newspapers again, or at this point, what exactly can we do? Can we send out invitations to bid and the protocol? So we're just checking all the legal boxes right now on our next step.
I'm surprised we didn't get bids.
I think it could be, it's a very small section, and it's a very small project for those who are in the prime summertime, you know, construction of sidewalks, things like that. I think there's other bigger projects where more money's at for them.
Makes
I think
sense.
that's one of the problems we're having.
Thank you.
I would have thought drainage and everything else would have raised the cost up enough for somebody to want to take it.
Yeah,
$500,000 project, that's not inexpensive.
it's big for us, for sure, so,
I guess
yeah.
that's true.
yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Bon? Okay, I guess that's it. Agenda item adjournment. I have a motion.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We adjourn this meeting at 7 till 9.
It's not our
Thanks
latest
for
meeting.
coming, guys.
It's not our latest meeting.
No, it's not our latest.
I think the latest one I've had was
On my
about that.
watch, it's one of my later